we'll put it like that.
Nice.
What's it like? I was actually there in attendance in Cleveland for Coe's first career NFL touchdown, which was awesome. And,
Awesome.
It was a great game. You could hear me on camera. I was just screaming, "Say it ain't so, Coe! Say it ain't so!" Sadly, from there, the game kind of went off the rails a little. That was the last high moment of that game, but it was a great game. Overtime loss, fun time.
Yeah.
But how was that moment for you? Seeing the first, whether it was on TV, in person, wherever you were, seeing his first NFL touchdown. How was that?
Well, dude, I mean, we were at home because it was a away game. We don't travel to a lot of the away games because we can get into that later. But to watch that and to think I wished I was there live. So to have your video was so cool, and just say this is so cool. I mean, that was so cool for us. Catching it from Tom Brady, right? Like he's got the ball yet. I mean, first NFL touchdown means a lot, right? I mean, as a dad, this is so cool to see. And it was fun to watch. And, it didn't have the outcome we wanted, but still the same. What a memory! What a memory to have, right? So,
and honestly,
cool.
those. One of the best guests ever, the Buccateers in the house tonight. You guys hear him on Tampa radio all the time. He's one of the best in the business. My favorite personal in the business. That's why I'm elated tonight. Growing up in the Chicago area, you're used to sports radio. That's what gets me through the day. So this man does help get me through the day, I will say, with the Pat and Aaron show at work. Nothing like it. So it's incredible. It looks like we got Stunna bumbling in. I'm Tampa Tones. We are joined by lead goon tonight, host of the Pat and Aaron show of WDAE, Pat Donovan. And it sounds like Stunna is bumbling a little bit. Going to put him on mute for a second until that gets a little cleared. But we're joined by Pat Donovan.
It looks like Stunna's hanging out with Cheech and Chong in a car with the windows up or something over there.
It does look like you got a little...
No, my camera's broke.
And he was trying to pull me in big time. And then I was like, hey, nothing's happened with Indianapolis yet. Like, I really want to give Indy a chance. And then also I talked to Cody Gruden, once he took over Rich McCannum, still like, well, look, I was like, y'all just give me the opportunity to explore free agency, see what's going on, and then come out and make us do it.
All right, everyone, you are tuned into the Buccateers, a wide receiver, Kalen Geiger, and we are about to have a great pod. This is the Buccateers. You're tapped in, and here we go. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Long time no see on a Monday. Last Monday, we had the great Buck What You Heard, Gene filling in. He did a tremendous job. Shout out to Gene running the ship and program last Monday alongside Joey Nips. And now we're back with our Man Cave Mondays with the great Bucs by 30, Tampa Tones, and a very special fun guest in the house. A lot of you know him well over on Bucs X, Twitter X, whatever the hell the kids call it these days. We'll go with, how about Twex? There we go. That sounds like a bad term. We won't say Twex anymore. So we'll go with that. But our guy, Pelagic Imputer over on Twitter, the great John is in the house. John, thanks for coming on, brother. Honored to have you. A longtime friend of the shows. We're here to talk some Buck ball.
Yeah, thanks for having me out today, guys.
Always, and Zach, always a pleasure, man. Hope all is well. It's been a while since me and you have been on one together, so excited to kind of pick your brain a little bit on some of these Bucs moves of late and man cave items and more, brother.
Yeah, absolutely. Always a good time to be talking Bucs ball and Bucs collectibles. So you can't really go wrong in that scenario.
No, I mean, look at these two gentlemen's backdrops. We got Mike Alstott, Derek Brooks, and then Zach has every current player under the sun, it looks like, in his. So we got the Legends covered down low. We got the modern-day roster covered with Zach. And then we got a pair of old and new wide receivers, Godwin and Evans. Weird saying that. I am going to have to move the Evans off the wall, sadly, because my motto is current players go on the wall. I don't have enough room as Zach does. Maybe soon when I move out, I will, Zach. I don't know about that.
Wow. Wow, that just hurt even just listening to it. I can't even imagine trying to make that decision.
It's tough. It's tough. It's not an easy one to make. But boys, I do want to talk about the NFC South productive linebacker signing with Tampa today. Not Lavonte David, but it is a man who's had triple-digit tackles the past couple of seasons as a starter with the Rams and Panthers. Mr. Roseboom has entered the building, and what's interesting about him, Zach, Pops just texted in the show, welcome, John. Hello, gentlemen. Welcome, Pops. He texted me a picture saying how Keefe and Roseboom were actually teammates in college. So there is a connection. Keefe obviously was one of the boat day re-signings by Jason Light. And now we have Roseboom entering the building. Zach, thoughts on him entering the linebacker room? I like it. I assume it's a cheap one-year deal. And he's been productive. So he'll be linebacker 3, linebacker 4 maybe, but probably linebacker 3.
Yeah, I mean, I don't get too excited either way for a reserve player being signed. I mean, this guy's not going to make or break the season. So I think it's a good signing. I think, as Plex likes to say, it raises the floor in the room, right? So we get a little bit better there. Now you got a guy like Nick Jackson that probably going to get pushed to the practice squad and be called up in situational scenarios as opposed to maybe being linebacker 4. So to me, it's a good signing. I watched some tape of his today because I wasn't super familiar with his game, and I liked what I saw. He's a see ball, get ball kind of guy. Made a lot of plays in the backfield, a lot of plays sideline to sideline. He's probably going to contribute on special teams. So, like you said, it's probably going to be a lower end signing. He's not meant to take Lavonte's spot. He's not meant to be the day one starter. So, I like it for what it is.
I do as well. John, what say you? Do you share the same thoughts as Zach on the new signing? Newest Buccaneer. They announced that one quick, so you can tell it's later in free agency. They announced it already on Twitter.
Yeah, I think that I agree with a lot of what Zach said. I mean, I look at it more as a good depth signing, which we were obviously we saw how that has been exposed over the last few years. I don't think it really moves the needle that much on a Lavonte decision. I think they probably already know, and I would still expect. I think barring a trade back, with a trade back, I still think linebackers definitely in play in round 1. Definitely day 2. So. I think it's a good depth signing, but as he said, nothing that's going to really move the needle either way.
Yeah, I do agree with that. Not a needle mover, but a nice depth piece. Last year, I will say he played in 15 games, and he was a tackling machine on Dave Canales' division-winning Carolina Panthers. That still stings to say that, but he did have 122 tackles last year, 135 a season ago, started 15 out of 15 games last season. He started 11 out of 17 the year before that with the Rams. So this is a guy who can clearly rotate in. If he played in 17 games 2 years ago with the Rams, but started 11 of them, he surely has no problem rotating in. And John, that's an important point you make. I don't think it really impacts the Lavonte David signing all that much for this Tampa Bay Buccaneers team, because we all know at this point, after watching last year, for a couple things: A, to stay on the field, and B, just at that age where you slow down a little bit, Lavonte would probably benefit of not being an every down linebacker. So you bring in Alex Anzalone from Detroit, you sprinkle in a Lavonte if he returns, you get a Christian Roseboom in the signing, you still have Servace Dennis, you could always have a rookie. This linebacker room would suddenly have potential, something that a year ago, Zach, it didn't seem like it ever had, really. Going into game day, Lavonte seemingly had to overcompensate, as you always point out, for other linebackers. And seemingly the past couple of years, you really can't tell the difference between the Devin Whites, the KJ Britts, and whoever the hell linebacker number 2 is in there. It seems like whoever it is, whatever the play is, Zach, whoever it is, the personnel, it's the same old result. So I do like at least being aggressive at the very least and bringing in some new faces to try and upgrade this position. Keyword is try.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, none of these guys that they signed are a long-term solution, right? I mean, Anzalone got a 2-year deal. Roseboom's probably got a 1-year deal. Hell, even Robinson and Gainwell. Robinson's on a 1-year, Gainwell's on a 2. The only person they signed back for more than 2 years is Otten. So these guys aren't meant to be the future of the franchise. They're meant to be a stopgap while we can bring on some younger players. Not to mention, Anzalone is 31, pushing 32. I think he'll be 32 in the season. Roseboom is 29. So it's not like these guys are supposed to be the future of the position. So even if Lavonte comes back, I would still like to see us draft 2 guys that we could bring along, because we have no future at this position currently. Like, I don't think any of us here think Servassier is the future of the linebacker position for this franchise. So we have to get some guys in here that can contribute next year and the year after, because currently those guys aren't on the roster. Even if David comes back, it's going to be, his farewell tour, so to speak. So we have to get some youth in this room. So that's why you shouldn't lose any sleep over these signings, because they're not meant to be the future. They're meant to be, hey, we're going to develop some guys, and in the interim, here's what we're doing.
Yeah, and to piggyback off your point, Zach, and our guy King Cook in the house, how it do, King Cook. Nancy's over on Facebook watching us live. Where the free agency moves at, I disagree with where the free agent moves at. Like I said, I know we haven't signed a big fish, a mammoth, but at the same time, they have addressed the needs. As Zach alluded to, their short-term gap fixes, and then we're going to hopefully address these positions in the draft, piggyback these positions, and develop the youth into future players. We see Eli Roberts growing before our eyes. Hopefully he's the guy who's able to make the next step this year. We heard a lot about David Walker, how much people liked him. We haven't even seen him in pads yet. Same with a guy like J.J. Roberts. So, John, this is a team that, they made moves, obviously not the big fish, but AQM, El-Qadim Muhammad, 1 year, $6 million max. That's a pretty good deal right there. Killebrew from the Steelers, we lacked special teams last year. 1 year, $2.5 million for him. Kenneth Gainwell kind of washes out Rachaad White. So I do think they're making moves. Obviously, fans always want the names, but as Zach kind of said, we're going to hope for that in the draft and these younger guys returning on this roster, opposed to giving up draft capital for the Max Crosbys of the world.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, again, I think it's, not trying to piggyback off of you or Zach, but I mean, they are what they are. Just look at the lengths, look at the contract terms. And I mean, look at the ages. I mean, these are definitely, stop gaps, and to a certain extent, role players or depth. I do like the idea, that Zach mentioned. I'd like to see 2 linebackers drafted in this draft. And again, I think we'll see one, day 2 at the latest. Depending on whether Jason can trade back or not and pick up, an additional 2nd or 3rd round pick, or if he, makes some moves on day 2, double dip at the position. I mean, we saw it last year with corner. So, and again, that's not to say, I mean, I think we saw that coming, but not at the extent that they did. And I mean, that's obviously, if Morrison can stay on the field, that's the future. That's what they were looking at, in the secondary, was having Parrish and, BMO, and then obviously Zion, who had a pretty rough year last year. But I think they've done a lot. Just as you alluded, it just wasn't the big names that everybody wanted to see. And I'm just not quite sure that the team as a whole is in a position to sacrifice, multiple premium draft picks, for certain players who are, a little long in the tooth, multiple surgeries, so on and so forth. So I don't mind it. I know that's not the answer that a lot of Bucs fans wanted to see over the last several weeks.
Yeah, and I love your point of double dipping, and a guy like Jason Light, not afraid to double dip. Don't do it at a party, but in the draft, it's okay. But the cornerbacks that worked out last year, obviously, Parrish played phenomenal to me. Obviously, Benny Moe, a little banged up, didn't play up to par, but I still have high hopes for his future. And Parrish was phenomenal. And then even wide receiver, look at how awesome that is now with the Buca, and obviously everybody, including me, assumed Tuz was probably going to be the special teams guy, but he played some effective wide receiver out there last year. So that was another good double dip. And a guy like Jason Light, I trust him to do what's right. And if he wants to double dip on linebacker or edge in this year's draft, all power to him. I put my cap in his court, and I do endorse Jason Light as the general manager of this football team, as some people, I'm not going to name names on Twitter, but some people seemingly lead the hate crowd more so than others. But I think he's having a nice little offseason. And A'Shawn Robinson had the presser of the century, perhaps, in his welcoming into the Buccaneers. He looked nasty. He looked pissed off. He looked ready to roll. And by the way, fellas, one of the funniest things I always think is people on Twitter always make a big deal out of the Bucs must have a culture problem. Jamel Dean and Logan Hall go with their new teams and say how they could win now and how they want to win. All the Bucs free agents said the same. Kenneth Gainwell said he came here to win. A'Shawn Robinson said he came here to win. So that is free agent speak. You're not going to sign a contract and go to a team and be like, I took a little more money with them. I don't know if the Texans could win the Super Bowl, but hell, why not? That's why I'm here. Or Jamel Dean with the Steelers. Nothing against Pittsburgh, but they're pretty much in the same place the Bucs are in terms of like their measuring stick. So, Zach, I find that always a little funny on Twitter. Oh my God, Logan Hall said this. Well, it's like, yeah, well, A'Shawn Robinson said the exact same thing. So, apples and oranges. I think a lot of these Bucs fans just kind of want to punch anything in the throat they try and can.
Yeah, man, if you believe everything an athlete or a GM or a coach says in a press conference, I have a bridge to sell you. It's called coach speak for a reason. You're never going to get the truth as to what is going on behind closed doors. So they're all going to say, I left because I thought this opportunity provided me the opportunity to win now or win a championship. That's just what they're not going to say. Like, I lost faith in the organization. They didn't believe in me as a player. I didn't believe in this. You're never going to get that. So we can speculate till the cows come home, but we are never going to know the reality of the situation. So you can't look at it that way, right? I mean, Jason and this franchise has shown over the last several years, if they want a player back, they'll get that player back. The only exception of that has been this situation with Mike Evans. That's really the only one, and, I know we've already been on this and I get on my soapbox about Jason all the time. I think if you're going to have a knock against Jason, it's that he isn't as aggressive as we would like to be at certain times. People see the Rosemans of the world or the Sneeds out there making all these trades, fuck them draft picks, right? That's not Jason. Jason's not going to, he's not going to potentially piss away the future of the franchise to make that move, right? Like the Eagles gave up a 3rd round pick for Phillips, had him for the half the season. We talked about this on the show when it happened, right? Yeah, they're potentially going to get a comp pick for him. So, this, that, or the other, but that's not Jason's MO. He's never been that guy. He's never even when we were in the midst of all that Super Bowl run and running it back, he still never leveraged the future to address that. So if you don't like Jason, just say you don't like that he's not aggressive for you, because he drafts extremely well, especially at certain positions, and others not so good. But, John mentioned it before we started the show here. You got to look at where we were drafting, right? You want to pound the table about JTS? He was the last pick in the 1st round.
Pick number 32.
You want to get upset about Logan Hall? He was a 2nd round pick. We didn't have a 1st round pick that year. And it was, so you can't take a guy that's drafted he's drafted at the end of the 1st round for a reason. It's not like we drafted Myles Garrett first. We don't have that opportunity because of where we're drafted. And even this year, drafting 15th, you got to have 14 perfect scenarios fall to you for you to get the best edge rusher off the board. And that's not going to happen, right? So we got to make the best out of whatever opportunity is there.
That's why, to me, Bucs are in a territory where they could do either trade up or trade down. I think they could trade up to maybe get someone elite, or they could trade down if the chips don't fall like they expect them to, maybe accumulate some draft capital. We've seen Light do both before. As Zach said, Logan Hall, JTS, a little bit handcuffed. We've seen him do the opposite, where he was aggressive, went up and got a Tristan Wirfs. I know people always say, oh, it was only one spot. Well, the Bucs still traded up to get him. Obviously, they felt like there was pressure barring in from someone else. So you got to if you're going to hate on Jason Light, just remember you also got to give him kudos for the correct moves he does make. And there's been a lot of those correct moves, as John alluded to, the double dip, Zach's alluded to, hands being tied, the worst move up. I mean, Bucky Irvin, I know he had his little down year last year. Great value there. McMillan's been great value. Even Otten's been great value. I don't love the contract we gave him, but that's the nature of how the NFL moves nowadays. The big money guys of today, just are getting big money. Cleve and Me says, happy Monday, fellas. Happy Monday, Cleve and Me. Thanks for joining in. Pete's over on Facebook, tuned in. Thanks to Pete for giving us a thumbs up over there. But, John, I want to ask you, you briefly brought it up earlier, so you'll be the lead man on this one. Lavonte David, in or out? Do you think he returns to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? We already lost Tom Moore. We already lost Gene Deckeroff. We already lost Mike Evans. I could just imagine Bucs. Oh, my God, Todd Bowles made Lavonte David retire now. Could you believe this? And Jason Light couldn't even offer him $500,000 more.
I'm still really 50-50 on this, but I'm not going to do that to you on the show. I'm going to make a decision. I'm going to lean towards he will come back for another year. I think that there was a lot, and again, Zach made a point. There's players speak and coach speak, and a lot of that in reality is agent speak. And I know there was a lot that came out about his knee injury, and that he played a good portion of the season through that. And I know, he's a competitor, obviously. So I think that he'll want to come back for one more season. And I'm not sure like Evans leaving plays a part either way. But I'd like to see him come back. Now, admittedly, Moore is a rotational piece. So that way we have him fresh. And especially if we're going to spend a day one or early day two pick on a linebacker, would love to have Lavonte in the locker room and on, in practice field, just, kind of grooming this person. Wish we could have addressed it a little earlier, a few years ago while Lavonte was still playing, the way that he was, 3 years ago, but I'm leaning towards he's going to come back.
I like that. I still think he's going to come back as well. Friend of the program's a great JC Allen of the Pirate Parlay podcast was on the show yesterday. Yeah, that was only yesterday. Wow, seems like a lifetime ago, but he was on yesterday, and he said he still leans towards Lavonte coming back as well, and he has a pretty good pulse on the Buccaneers. So I like where your head's at. King Cook saying, so what pass rushers have we signed that can close out a game? What linebackers? Well, again, they could have been bigger names, but Ashawn Robinson has 8 sacks over the last 2 seasons. You add him next to a healthy Cansey and a healthy Vea on that D-line. There should be more interior pressure, and if a guy like AQM could help get home a little bit, he had double-digit sacks last year. You draft 1 or 2 pass rushers. That pass rush could look a lot better. I think a healthy Kalijah Cansey makes a big difference too, so we got to hope he's obviously staying healthy this year. But Zach, thoughts on John's Lavonte David returning, thoughts, and on what King Cook is commenting as well?
Yeah, I'm going to go the other way since John took the pessimistic angle. I'll take he went optimistic. I'll go pessimistic. I think he's going to ride off into the sunset, but I'm going to say there's a caveat. I can see there being an injury and then them calling him out of retirement to come in mid-season. We've kind of done that before with a couple other guys. So I feel like we'll have Lavonte.
We tried it with Gronk.
Right. So I feel like that's probably the way. I mean, it's kind of poetic, right? We've had 2 Hall of Fame linebackers on this team, and right now they are tied in tackles for all-time franchise. So I think that's kind of poetic. But I do see a scenario where he comes back mid-season due to an injury. And I don't think it has anything to do with Mike, and I don't think it has anything to do with the coach, and I don't think it has anything to do with the fan base or the ownership or the GM. I just think it's going to be a decision that Lavonte makes on his own for his self and his family. As far as what King Cook brought up there, we hear this all the time, man. We signed Shaq Barrett. We traded for JPP. We signed Ndamukong Suh. We drafted Vita Vea. We drafted Kalijah Cansey. Cansey and Vita have had some injury concerns. That's not anything a GM or a coach can do anything about. JTS didn't work out. He had all the tools needed, but he didn't work out. He was also a victim of the COVID year. He didn't play a whole year of college, so we were hoping that guy was going to work out. Logan Hall didn't work out. That's why the draft isn't a guarantee, right? Especially when you're picking later in the rounds. We had Carl Nassib for a minute. We have had Anthony Nelson. We drafted David Walker. We don't know what he's going to be, but we've got him. There's been guys. We've been trying to make these assessments. And let's not act like Devin White, the first 2 years that he was here, we were all convinced he was the next guy. We don't win that Super Bowl without Devin White. He came back after he missed that game due to COVID, the Redskins playoff game, and was insane in the playoffs and the Super Bowl, right? And we all thought, this is the dude right here. He's going to be the guy. And then, whatever happened with Devin happened, and it didn't work out. Unfortunately, we've not drafted inside linebacker, to kind of reload the position. It's unfortunate. Corners, we've made a lot of attempts. We drafted Lights drafted Davis. He drafted Jamel. He drafted Parrish and BMO and Zion. And I mean, resources after we've addressed these positions. And Zion, before the contract, was playing to where we wanted to see him extended, right? But he got extended, and again, we're never going to know what happened. I'm a firm believer that he didn't get put on the injured reserve because of a physical injury. I think it was something else, and I'm hoping he gets over that and he plays well because he has the tools. The middle of the field being open, I'm more convinced that it's a scheme issue than a talent issue, and I will die on that soapbox. So to your point, King Cook, I can understand your frustrations, but we have thrown resources at those positions that you mentioned. Aside from inside linebacker, that would be the one that I would say we probably should have given more attention to. But pass rush, even though they weren't the biggest guys or biggest name guys or the flashiest guys, we didn't go get Crosby, we didn't go sign Hendrickson, whatever. But we have made attempts there. And I don't know that we've had the proper development from a coaching staff for a pass rush. So that's just where I stand, and I'm tired of beating that horse because it's been dead a long time.
Just say in theory you have, we're looking at a front seven on week 1. If you're saying we're not really making moves, you're going to have Vea and Cansey automatically a part of that opening day front seven, but every single other 5 could be different than we saw last season. On the front seven, you might get Ashawn Robinson in there. You could get a guy like AQM who puts his hand in the dirt. AQM could maybe be on the edge. You have Alex Anzalone. You could have a Roseboom or first-round pick or second-round pick linebacker there. On the other edge, it might not be Yaya. It might be a first-rounder with AQM on opposite side. Yaya could still be a part of that, but you're talking 4 or 5 new guys here because we are going to draft pieces to help out this front. So we gotta just be I'll put it cautiously optimistic because this team is trying to compete this year and the NFC South is wide open, and I think a lot of Bucs fans forget that. Obviously the end goal is Super Bowl, but we're in a division. All it takes is to get to the dance. This Bucs team, Baker and the offense could put forth a better effort this season too, and hopefully our new offensive coordinator Zach Robinson could bring the heat, and that kind of brings me up on my next topic. John, what have you thought about the coordinators and new coaches coming in? Special teams was terrible last year. They got the oldest son of a gun they could find to try and right the ship on special teams. Offense, as we alluded to, the last 4, 5, 6 weeks of the year last year, we had a guy named Mike Evans not even get used. There were plenty of room for improvement on Todd Bowles' defensive side of the ball. Didn't make as many changes as I would have liked to see, but at least he did still try and make some changes. So this is a new staff. What say you on the thought of this new staff?
Well, first and foremost, I'm one of the many who thought that Todd should have been thanked for his contributions to the Buccaneers and shown the door. And then when it became pretty clear that wasn't going to happen, and we're looking at the coordinators that he was going through, there was a few that stuck who I thought should have been very close to the top of being let go. But I think, being longtime fans that we know that one of the good things about Todd and very admirable things about him is he's extremely loyal, which is, an awesome quality, but I think to a certain extent, he's loyal to a fault.
Yeah.
But I can't help but think of, really on the offensive side of the ball, if we had the production that we had last season with somebody like Liam Cohen, and I'm just using him as an example, but would it have been enough to get us through that slide that we went through the back half of the season? So with Zach Robinson coming in, I noticed on Twitter, a lot of people were, upset about the signing. And I think that had more to do with who is available, because a lot of the people that were complaining about the signing were banging the drum for him the year before when we hired Liam Cohen, which I thought was kind of funny. So I think, again, they're looking at him and looking at what he had to work with, the last 2 years in Atlanta, especially with, how much he's running particular packages based on the limitations that he had with an extremely immobile quarterback with Kirk Cousins, and then with Penix, who I can't remember the percentage, but the overwhelming majority of his snaps in college, he was operating out of the shotgun. So I think with this particular team, or current roster build, I think we'll see something different. I'm gonna keep Zach. I mean, Zach's gonna rip me for this, but I'm gonna keep the positive theme going, the optimistic theme going. I'm excited about what Zach will bring. I think we'll see if it's anything between what we saw with Cohen and then last year with Grizz. It's obviously, if it's somewhere in between that, it's going to be a huge upgrade. I think we'll run the ball a little bit more, especially with the Gainwell signing. But I like the offensive signing so far. And I wouldn't be surprised if they're looking at Robinson as a potential head coach in waiting.
I like the Robinson move a lot as well, because I think, as you kind of said, there were a couple apple of the eyes out there, like a Mike McDaniel obviously would have been cute to some and a name that intrigued some, and there were some other options that were high and mighty and intriguing, but at day's end, the best of the realistic options was Zach Robinson, and I think he did draw the short end of the stick in Atlanta. I think he's a brilliant young mind who has spent years as a player in New England, so he's learned a thing or two from Tom Brady over there. He spent coaching time with the Rams, learned from the best over there. He had Cohen, McVay, many LaFleur on that staff. I mean, you talk about a guy, and then you go to Atlanta, and you're expected to be the guy, because nothing against Raheem Morris. He is what he is as a head coach at this point. We saw him with the Bucs. We saw him intern with Atlanta. Now we've seen him real with Atlanta. He had 3 head coaching stints. We know he's a guy who needs a really good offensive coordinator to get him over the hump. And Zach Robinson, to me, I know they had Bijan, but some of that O-line was abysmal in Atlanta. They didn't really figure out the quarterback position. I mean, there was a lot of weird stuff going on with that team. So I'm excited for him here. I like the other offensive moves we made on the coaching staff too. I think they really benefited there. Nothing against Tad Lewis. I had high hopes for him at one point, but I'm excited with this new Bucs offensive staff. Some of the other guys they wash your hands with, stinks to see them go. But at day's end, Zach, I am behind Zach Robinson. No tongue twister there, Zach. I am behind Zach Robinson. Thoughts on that? King Cook saying Max Crosby's still out there. We kind of alluded to it earlier, just not their forte. And especially at this point, I think things are going to settle. Dust is going to settle. I don't know his unfate with Oakland, but they need time to figure that whole thing out. I don't think the Bucs are going to be players in that. And at this point, I don't know if the Raiders even want to dangle him back out there, because his value would probably not be what it was. I don't know what the hell happened there, but Zach, what say you on all that? Some of the other guys the Bucs signed to offensive staff, TJ Yates, former playoff quarterback, is pass game coordinator. So I like that hire for the staff as well. He, excuse me, he came over from Atlanta too. So that's one of my other favorites too, Zach.
Yeah, no, I'm optimistic about the offense. I really am. I think McDaniel was the pipe dream. It was the thing that we all kind of, envisioned happening and being the coach in waiting, but that didn't come to fruition. And I think the best plan B was Robinson, right? He's out of the McVay tree. He's going to be closer to what Cohen had this offense doing than what Grizzard had this offense doing. And I think that really plays to Baker's strengths. So I think we'll see a lot more improvement in the offense. As Chris Cole says here, offensive line health is key. They really got to get those guys in the right position. We didn't have one game with our starting offensive line all last season. I mean, that's insanity thinking like the same thing we can talk about the receivers as well. You know, we went into that season thinking, man, we got the best receiving core and one of the best offensive lines in the league. And we didn't get to see any of those things in the same game. So that's going to be key. I like what Robinson potentially brings from his time in Atlanta. I also think sometimes when a guy, and I don't want to say his time in Atlanta was a failure, it just wasn't as successful as he had hoped. But I think when you get a second crack at it, you do a little bit better, right? Because you already know what doesn't work. Now we can pivot to what does work. I love the Denny Smith signing. Like our special teams was so catastrophic last year. I feel like we lost games due to special teams, and it's been a long time since we felt that. We've never really had an explosive special teams, but we've kind of had a middle of the pack. But last year we had dog shit for special teams.
Like our special teams really makes me miss a guy like Pat O'Connor. As you said, was he ever great? No, but to this recent special teams, he was like a Hercules.
Yeah, well, Keith going down was massive for special teams.
Damn it.
Big time for special teams. He brings a lot to special teams and the run game. So having him back is a huge thing. Plus, it also keeps me from drinking bleach. So I'm excited that happened. And then we're bringing in some guys, Roseboom, Killebrew. We're bringing in some guys that are probably going to contribute on special teams. So both of those are positive. So I'm really optimistic about that. While John was talking about the offense and stuff last year, it got me thinking of a point, and I'm probably going to have to do this soon. I wonder how many of those games down the stretch after the bye did we lose, and who was on the field at the time? Like, were we on the offense driving to win the game, or were we on defense trying to prevent the other team from taking the lead? That'd be an interesting film study to see who was on the field last. That just came to my mind. But to King Cook's point, I'd love it. I think all three of us on this call would love them to make that move and bring Crosby in, but there's so many other pieces to it, right? The Raiders have to want to move him. The price has to be right. I'm telling you right now, Jason's not going to pay 2 1s. It's not going to happen. You might get this year's 1 and next year's 2, and I think I would be cool with that, but he's not going to do 2 1s. And if that's the price, we're not going to be players. But it's easy to say, hey, go get these guys. It's much more difficult in the reality of the situation because there's so many other pieces that come into play.
I also really
go on, John.
Sorry, just piggyback off what Zach said. The other thing is you have to look at, and I know Josh Capo over Pewter Report does a really good job about it, but it's also it's 100% tied into what the Glazers are willing to spend. And I think and he's brought it up, and I was guilty of it. You know, we get so focused on cap space and cap room and cap this, and the actual cash that's being allocated and spent is far more important than the than the actual cap space. And there are still contracts that they could absolutely manipulate and restructure to allow the cap space to bring in Crosby on the current contract that he's on. But the Glazers have proven that their spending is usually tied to the cap. And we're past that point. So I just don't see it happening. But sorry, Thomas, go ahead.
No, sorry, because that is a great point, and that's what a lot of people tend to forget too. Everybody wants to say Jason Light isn't doing this, or Todd Bowles probably says don't bring him in. At day's end, a lot of it has to do with the ownership, and the GM could only spend what the ownership lets him to spend. Maybe he could spend a little more, but not a lot more. And then the head coach could really only allocate, like if Todd Bowles could get a guy like Max Crosby, no, I wouldn't want. Yes, of course you would want him. If Jason Light couldn't go out and spend the money to get him, of course you would do that. But sometimes their hands are tied. Not blaming. I mean, it is the Glazers' choice, but I respect them. They're owners and they've done us well, but at times they are. I'll put it as frugal with their money, maybe. They're I'll watch what I say, but that's all it is with the Glaziers, and I love them dearly because they did save Buccaneer football. But there are times where this team could go all in, and they don't. And that's not Jason Light's fault. That's not Todd Bowles' fault. That's not Zach Robinson's fault. That is, as John alluded to, a very good point. A lot to do with the Glaziers. As Pops texted in with coaching, another good point. Zach Robinson said him and Liam Cohen talk every day, so that's going to be pretty helpful to me. We, a lot of us know the brilliant mind that Liam Cohen is, regardless of what you think of him. He is a brilliant mind. That it could only benefit a guy like Zach Robinson being best friends with a guy like Liam Cohen. And Robinson's going to be motivated as well, being in Atlanta's division, playing them twice a year. He's going to be like, all right, you retained the DC. You didn't retain me. I know it's a new offensive coach, so it's not very comparable going in there. But, hey, throw some fuel to the fire. This kind of cracked me up because Richard said, happy Monday, fellas. Who's a new guy? Welcome. I think he's talking about John.
Yeah.
But then King Cook goes, another low-level depth player for real, talking about Roseboom. So
well, John, you're mid-level depth player in my book, John.
I appreciate you.
He's our Ashawn Robinson of the offseason. He's been the big move and big splash. And that's what I like about this offseason, too. A lot of 1 year, if Ashawn has a Reddick-type year, which I don't think he will, but if he has a disappointing year, you're not tied to him beyond a year. He's just cut loose at the hip. So that's what I like, a lot of 1 year guys. Olivia in the house. Hey, everyone. We love our lady listeners. Welcome into the program as usual, Olive. Love having you here. J-Lo over watching us live on Facebook. People were wondering if he was still alive yesterday because J-Lo's been in uber depression mode for the Bucs. Yeah, Richard, I got a good laugh out of it as well. But fellas, before we kind of move on to the man cave stuff here, I do want to get your overall assessment of the Bucs off season so far and what you hope comes out of the rest of it between draft and the off season in total. John, are you happy with it? Are you kind of just seeing what happens, and what else would you like to see from this team the rest of the way?
I'm pretty neutral to it, but I think it paints a pretty big picture. And what I mean by that is the future, because going back to what I talked about earlier, the ability to restructure a lot of contracts that they chose not to, I think can actually be indicative of what the future could look like if this next season doesn't turn out well. There's a lot of players on there that, the odds of Vita being on the team next year, I don't think are very good. There's obviously tradable assets on the team. I know there's been a lot of conversation about how many players are making, average per year annuals of over $20 million. So to see certain players like Winfield, I think that was the one that stuck out the most, who had a very, restructurable contract that they didn't touch it. And then you add in the fact that with free agency, we're seeing 1 year deals, 1 year deal, 1 year deal, maybe a 2 year deal. But even that second year of the deal, there's a minimal dead cap hit if you decided to move on. You look at somebody like Godwin, who next year the cap hit's not that bad, and it's something you move on. So I don't mind it. I think it's we're filling in the gaps, continue to build through the draft, but I feel like there's also a plan where if they need to pull the plug and go to a hard rebuild, they're obviously in that position, and it frees up a lot of cap space next year. Again, I'd love to see in the draft, just like everybody else, love to see an edge rusher, would love to see the double dipping at linebacker, but with the way the roster is right now, I want BPA every round. And I don't care if the best player on the board, if we're looking at the fourth best edge rusher, but it's the first best interior lineman, I want to draft the first best, the number one ranked interior offensive lineman on that board. And I know I'm going to get comments will be like, what the, but that's what I want to do. And I see a lot of times you'll see teams, they reach for need versus taking BPA. And I know that there's a place where they intersect, but that's what I want to see from Jason. I'd love to get a trade back in the day one, acquire some more picks, and just take the best player available. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, and that's a great point, and I think you did a good job of that last year with Emeka Egbuka, or as Gronk says, Emeka Igbigbu, but I think that was a great BPA pick, and we didn't even realize it at the time. For like a second, not gonna lie, I was a little salty, but then after like 10 minutes, I'm like, man, this is game changing. You watch a guy's film and you just fall in love with the player. That's what it is. But a lot of people think differently for whatever reason. Zach, what say you? Off-season thoughts? I pretty much agree with John, so I'm gonna leave mine with him and piggyback off him. Chris says Gainwell is going to be on kick and punt returns. He was with Pittsburgh, so that's a probable scenario, but they are paying him a lot, so maybe we'll see how they handle that. You never know. But Danny, he's familiar. That could be another connection right there. Smith and Gainwell coming over from Pittsburgh together. Best tight end too. Zach, what say you?
There's a lot to run down there. I hope we see Gainwell as kick returner because I don't ever want to see Sean Tucker out there again.
Yes.
Give me Gainwell and Tez. I was really disappointed that we didn't get to see Tez return punts or kicks last year, so I'm hoping we get a little bit of that this year. I loved the Emeka pick last year just because I was at the Kansas City game when Ryan Miller was our best wide receiver, and I hope that would never happen again. So I was fine with the Emeka pick. This year, I'm going to grade it if there was no draft coming up, and then if there is the draft coming up. If there was no draft coming up, I would give it probably a D because it doesn't look into the future at all this offseason. We made a lot of like we've already talked about, made a lot of 1-year deals. But the fact that the draft is coming up, I'm a little bit more optimistic. I'm kind of like at somewhere between a B- and a C+, just depending on what we do with the draft. I will say I like some of the guys. I like what they bring. I think it shows us that the tide is changing a little bit in Tampa, where we brought in some quote unquote assholes, some guys that are a little bit more gritty between the sidelines. And I like that. I want to feel like we're going to punch them in the face and we're not getting punched in the face. So I like what a lot of these guys bring. Do they have flashy numbers? No, they're not going, like, we're not in that boat, right? We're not in that contention. But I will say what we've done thus far, like John's already alluded to, is this is a wait and see off season, right? Because if we finish third in the division, it's probably going to get burnt down. Baker might not be back. Godwin might not be back. Vita might be gone. We might move on from, we got a lot of guys we could move on from. Bowles is probably gone. And then you're going to see, a potentially high draft pick. We're going to see a new coach and a new direction in 2027. And I think this is another reason that they weren't in the Crosby sweepstakes, because they didn't want to give up that 27 draft pick because it's quarterback rich. So if we shit the bed, we're in a good place for 27. So I think that's what this offseason is showing us, is it's like we could be good or we could be bad. And if we're bad, we've got a plan. We've got all these guys we can move on from. We can free up this money. We're going to have draft picks. We're going to have a new coach, and we don't know what happened. Maybe some of these offensive coordinators that they interviewed, maybe that was a discussion they had with them. Like, you might not be our guy now, but maybe next year there might be a different opportunity. We don't know. I can tell you right now, the NFL doesn't play right now. They play 4 or 5 steps ahead. So they're making moves for next year and the year after. So this offseason just gives me the wait and see. Like, we could go either way.
Imagine this. We're going to go 7 wins, 7 losses, 3 ties this year. We're going to go 7-7-3. We're going to win every playoff game by a point. Todd Bowles is going to retire Super Bowl champ, and Todd Bowles Jr. is going to continue the 8-9 trend for this team moving forward. He'll get the reins next year, and Todd Bowles Jr. will be the head coach. Yeah, look at that. Re-Bowles to rebuild. We're going to get a new Todd Bowles Jr. There we go. No, this is pretty much make or break, as you guys both said, Zach. I really think I think either way this could be Todd Bowles last year.
Yeah, if 7-7-3 happens and we win the Super Bowl, I'm going to drive to Chicago and open mouth kiss you. Okay?
Honey, I'm home.
That is like the craziest scenario. I don't even know. Has there ever been more than 1 tie from a team in the NFL? Has a team ever finished with 2 ties?
I don't believe in our, what do they call it in modern football, or they call it something post-merger, like Super Bowl era. I don't believe ever in the Super Bowl era that has occurred. I'm guessing in like 1898 Where like the
Maybe.
Chicago Cardinals somehow took like 5 kneels in a game and tied twice or something like that. But yeah, if that happened, if we tied 3 times this year,
How
Zach,
bad would the rest of the division have to be to win the division at 7-7-3?
I don't know, but I know to lock my doors when I see Zach's GPS moving towards the
I was
Chicago.
getting ready to say, am I wild for rooting for a 7-7-3 season?
No.
Hey, well, I'll live stream it.
Brokeback Mountain round 2 all over again. No, but that's good stuff. If we could predict that here on the Buccateers, we really deserve our own Sports Center primetime show. That's
Somewhere
right.
somebody's laying that bet on the Bucs to go 7-7-3 right now.
Yeah, well, no, I'm kidding. Me and John both pick up the phones. All right, let's see.
Man.
Those odds would be astronomical.
That'd be a hell of a payout.
insane. Speaking of hell of a payout, this is a hell of a show with John, Zach, myself here on the Buccateers. If you're watching, hit that like button, subscribe button, turn that notification bell on the YouTube. It helps us continue the program. We appreciate it greatly. We also appreciate memberships. We have a couple. Ed Rabas is a member. We appreciate that. And to all our other members, Puckhead and the rest of them as well. Stay with us over on the Buccateers on YouTube and being in the Buccateers Brigade. We appreciate it. We always appreciate super chats. Never expected, always appreciated here on the Buccateers. Holy heated rivalry, says Richard. Speaking of holy heated, a lot of memorabilia is heating up again, Zach. It seems like a lot of stuff, if you're on the Bucs page, is floating around out there. Seems like more stuff is becoming available. So have you gotten anything new lately? Have you gotten any mail days, new ads to the collection? We'll start with you for the mailbag.
Yeah, I did a little wheeling and dealing this week. I upgraded my Cade Otton. I had the Otton from the Rams game where he basically just handed the ball to the guy and, and that turnover. I had that one. And I packaged it in a deal and got an Otton from the Panthers game that I attended a couple of years ago. So you know how it is. It's always nice to add a gamer from a game that you actually were at. So I did that, and I picked up another Rashad White with the 50th patch so I could show the front because the front's nice and dirty. And then my connection somehow, some way, I don't ask too many questions because I probably don't want to know the answers, got me a Garrett Green creamsicle. Like, I don't know. I don't know how it happened.
I saw that.
Yeah.
That was beautiful.
Yeah, I don't know how it happened, where it came from. I don't know, but I got it. So that's all that matters. So that's the only problem is it's issued. But he didn't play in a game outside of preseason, so he's going to be.
You know what about that though? I view that issued a little different, Zach, because he'd wear it if he could.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like, he would have worn that if he played. Where, you know, and this is nothing against like a Mike Evans issued or anything like that. It's still a beautiful jersey, but he might have never worn that even if he could. Where Green would have definitely worn that one, you know?
Yeah. So I don't know if they prepped one for even the guys on the practice squad just in case they got called up at the last minute so they'd have one. I don't know. Like I said, I'm not asking too many questions because it's glorious and I'm very thankful to have it. So I think that's it.
Just don't buy it from Rakim Jarrett. Heyo. No, I'll leave that. John, I'll tell you that story in a rainy day. You might already know that story, but yeah. Anyway, glad it's not from Rakim.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Maybe it is from Rakim, and never mind. But no, that's some great stuff there. Obviously, I've really, in terms of like sports memorabilia, I don't think I've gotten anything in. Trying to save up for a couple things right now, not memorabilia, real life things. I did add like a Marvel collectible on my cruise I was on. It's kind of cool. It's like Doctor Strange. Like it's not like an actual card, but it's like it looks like a playing card, you know, like a trading card, but it has like a diamond in it. Looks like an Infinity Stone type thing. So that was pretty cool. I kind of collect some Disney Marvel type like memorabilia as well. So that was cool. And then you get to scan a code and they send you a comic and both the comic and the card are one of 300, so they are numbered out there too. So that was pretty cool. They had a Black Panther, a little out of my budget, but that was a beautiful one. They had some other nice stuff, but that's pretty much the extent of my memorabilia. I'm trying to think.
Oh, I did get one other thing.
What did you get?
My nephew gave me.
Oh yeah, this is cool.
Yeah, he gave me the glove from the Steelers Bucs preseason game. And I say glove because he only wears one. So
I mean, that's very cool, and not many people. When you get from the source itself, is just incredible. It's just different. Richard said, I was at that Bucs Ram game. Our LA native, Richard, you could have slapped Kate Otten for us right then and there. Damn it. But John, what say you? A, kind of give people the forte on your collection and what you aspire to try and collect, whether it's Buccaneers or whatever. And B, have you gotten any upgrades or anything new to your collection lately as well, brother?
Well, nothing new lately. Some life has, unfortunately, life and the word that rhymes with life can definitely affect the budget that you're spending. But I am in the process of, and it's funny because Zach's going to be like, wait, what again? I'm remodeling the office that I have at the house. So something that's more kind of built-in shelving so I can have, and it'll wrap around the entire office. So I will probably get more into the gamer side of it simply because the way the shelves are going to be built out with lighting, it'll be in there. But I've always, I've collected Bucs and golf memorabilia a lot through the years. So with golf, a lot of it's flags from PGA events that I've gone to. Kind of in the background, I've got a flag from 2016 at the Arnold Palmer Invitational at Bay Hill. That was I was able to get it signed by Rory McIlroy the year that he won. So little things like that. As far as Bucs stuff goes, actually, Zach was actually the one who got me. Well, he just got me more into it. So I mean, a lot of the the pieces that I have, and again, I'm older, so when I was in my 20s, that's when you saw the All-Star Dunn, the Thunder Lightning combo, Derek Brooks, Rondé Barber, and that was really, as a Bucs fan, kind of at my age, seeing him come out of that abysmal period in the 80s and early 90s when you started to see the team come together. So the 2002 team, like, that's always going to be my favorite team. Yeah. And then a couple of the helmets that I have here, Mike Allstott signed helmet, Rondé Barber signed helmet. In the middle, that is a Tom Brady autographed helmet. So that's probably from a standard piece, like that's definitely the most expensive in the collection. That's football related. But the really cool thing about these two, and a lot of it was Zach helping out with that. We actually got those two signed. I think it was 3 years ago now, Zach, if I remember correctly. But myself and a couple of my really good friends, we played in the Bruce Arians Foundation golf tournament, which we ultimately ended up winning. And my wife was at one of the thank you. My wife and my sister were at one of the holes, and they had the helmets, and Zach was very specific prior to them coming down. He was like, I need the pictures. What color is the helmet? What color is this? I've got the exact, markers that you need for it and everything. And they came out great. But the coolest thing was just, fortunately for that tournament, it was about 5.5 hours long, but we actually played with Mike Allstott that entire time. So it was just cool to, one of the coolest things I think he said was we're about halfway through the tournament and we had not mentioned football once. We talked about fishing, we talked about traveling, and he kind of stopped. And I think at that point he was like, are you guys Tampa Bay? Are you guys Bucs fans? Like, just, man, we've been waiting 2.5 hours to say something. And
yeah.
Kind of heyday. And everything, through building up, and
We are losing you a little bit, John. It seems like Zach. Are you losing him too?
Yeah. Yeah, you
All
froze
right.
up.
Well,
A little bit. Well, let me try and do something really quick. Let's see if that helps. I don't know if that. Could you hear us, John?
I can hear you fine. It might be my end.
Yeah, it seems like it's going in and out.
Yeah.
Sucks.
Yeah, that story is epic, though, and I will say this: I've only been to one of those, not as a player. I already know your golf game way above and beyond, but that's about the coolest thing ever. I mean, getting to play with a guy like Elstad and the intricacies of not even needing to talk football, right? Just hanging out and shooting the stuff and getting a memento from that day too. That's just what collecting's all about, really, right there. And it's memories in here, and then it's just people don't realize how cool that is when you're a fan, and that's just one of the coolest things I could end up here. And I will say, if you are interested for your man cave and getting a Tommy Fleetwood signature, I know how to get you one of those for free. I know his mailing address. I don't know if you have Fleetwood yet or if you would like to add that to your collection, but
Talk offline about that.
yeah, I got one for me and my father, so I could help you out with that. Not going to give the secret sauce away to everybody, because then you know how that goes. Once you know, then the next thing you know, there goes the neighborhood. And then the one guy I love collecting golf stuff of is John Daly himself. He's just one of those guys where obviously he could have been a great golfer. He was for a little bit, but his story was just so crazy, and I just respect him because he stayed with golf. And even though obviously he wasn't great at it, a guy who just stayed there, and now you could tell he needs money because his stuff isn't that expensive online, but neither near or there. I was able to get a cheap 8x10. He sells like his game used golf balls for autographs that are like 20, 25 bucks. I think I got a glove of his and stuff like that. So affordable stuff, but I do like the golf stuff as well. And I'm a big VJ Singh guy. I was looking into a couple of his things on eBay, like game used glove, or I guess you could say match used glove or event used glove, not necessarily game used. But man, the golf, that is one thing I'm dipping into slowly in the memorabilia, because once you start attacking one sport, you just kind of get drowned into it. So it's like, man, could only take on so much of the bread at once. But John, it does seem like you have a little bit clear connection again. If you want to kind of finish the Elstad story out a little bit, I think we heard you pretty good until about he looked and asked if you guys were Bucs fans.
Yeah, he joked around just because we spent 60-70% of the day not talking about football, and he kind of made a comment that it was super nice to be around that. And then after, naturally, we peppered the hell out of him with a bunch of questions. he was a good sport about it. And you allude to just that right there in itself. Just having that of my favorite, arguably one of my favorite players from that era. But when I'm in the office and I look at it, it reminds me of that day. And that's something that myself and my brother-in-law, my two friends, that we'll remember forever. And I actually have a picture. I don't have it here. I have it at my work office. Zach can say it. Also, that day, one of the most memorable parts of that day was actually ripping fireballs with Baker Mayfield. And so I've got a picture in my office at work of us both just literally ripping a ball shooter. And I'm like, your quarterback could never do this. So just a funny tidbit about that. But no, it's a collection that's been growing over the years.
And as great as meeting Tom Brady would have been at one of those, I don't think the experience would have been quite as cool as
it wouldn't have been that memorable. God bless him, he's the GOAT, and his memorabilia is not cheap, but yeah, it's just not the same of having just a framed picture of you ripping a fireball or ripping a drink with your favorite team's quarterback. Like that's something that's just a memory that sits with you forever.
Unbeatable. And that's what we do is or strive to do as Bucs fans, or live for moments like that. Even this little headband right behind me, I got that from Chris Braswell at a game this year. I was sitting right there, and he threw it up after the game. And, when I look at it, it just takes me back to being at Jets Bucs, their first ever game in the white creamsicles in 50 years, and being with my parents. J-Lo was with us, sadly. No, I'm just kidding, J-Lo. J-Lo was with us at the game. That was awesome. We met up with Zach and B-Shuck the night before, and the Keeft family, which is incredible. Not Jason, don't get mad if you're listening. Co wasn't out the night before. It was the family. So it was incredible stuff. But, it just brings back those memories. And I think that's what I like a lot about memorabilia is I always love, like, obviously, if I could get a Cansey game used or an Evans game used, no matter the game it's from, awesome. But Zach is, John said, it's like having memorabilia and memories from those actual moments that you're a part of. As you said earlier, Zach, you get in the jersey of the game you were from. It just goes deeper, and that's really what collecting is all about.
Yeah, I think that's why we call it memorabilia, right? Because it reminds us of something, whether it's action figures.
This wasn't that he didn't play. I mean, he played golf. Okay. Not to cut you off, Zach, but you can't get mad at Baker for playing in the Valspar golf out. And the offseason's been 2.5 months in now. Even if he was a little bruised up, I'm sure he took care of himself. So, Brent, I love you for listening, but I don't think it's a bad look that Baker was golfing. But carry on, Zach.
Yeah. So I think the whole reason that we gravitate towards whatever it is that we collect is because it reminds us of a better time, right? Or a better period of our lives that we want to rekindle or remember. So I think that's what draws us to collecting, is it's all about remembering something that you're passionate about or that you want to continue to be passionate about. So it's much deeper than just a financial thing, right? Because there's stuff that we all collect that don't really have any value to anybody else other than ourselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what it's really about is the connection that you have to whatever item it is that you're part of collecting. And for some of us, it's many items, many different varieties of items.
That's the beauty of it, though. There's so much stuff to collect, and as you could say, it could be as little as, people could collect rocks, and if that's what makes them happy and brings them back to their, happy times, awesome. That's a beautiful thing with collecting. There's no shame or limits of what you collect. You do what you enjoy to collect. I know one of the people's pet peeves, but I get Anthony on a lot of my signed stuff, which obviously means I can't resell it unless it's to probably somebody named Anthony. But my motto is I'm not, it's here to stay. Mm-hmm. If I'm getting my name on it, I don't care how much I can make. I'm going to be dead when it sells anyways. So, honey, fiance, if you're listening, you won't get money on the stuff that says Anthony too much, but it will be a lifelong keepsake for the household that you do aspire to live in. So it is awesome. We are here in the Buccateers. Before we log off, I do want to ask one last topic before our finishers. Zach, what are you aiming for next, if anything? And the pricing of memorabilia, a lot of newbies who jump in the market kind of get shell-shocked. And I understand that, right? Like, I used to collect cards, and now I look at the prices of cards nowadays, and I'm like, holy crap. But people like us kind of understand what happens. Some people don't. So, A, are your eyes set on anything next? And B, for the newbies out there listening, maybe kind of explain the shell shock of the price rise a little bit.
Well, it's pricing's all going to depend on where you go, where you're looking for it. If you're going to eBay or an auction house, the price is going to be higher than if you buy it off of a private individual, because there's fees and then there's the competitive nature of bidding. I don't know how many times I bought something off eBay in an auction type, not a buy it now scenario, where it's I'm bidding and I end up getting more pissed off that I keep getting outbid, and I end up paying way more because I got uber competitive. And now I'm like, I'm never making my money back on this thing because I got too click happy. So that's the number one thing, because the eBay price is not the price. eBay prices are all inflated. depending on what the item is, you're probably looking at 10-15% markup just for the seller to try to recoup the fees that eBay is going to take out of the sale. So you can't, just because something lists on eBay for $5,000, think that $5,000 is the price. We've talked about it on here before. There's no price guide for these things for gamer jerseys. So it's really about, you got to find a window that you're comfortable with. I paid this much for it. I'm willing to take this much of a loss. Like, that's something that I contemplate when I buy any jersey. If I'm going to pay $800 for it, knowing that I might not get $800 for it when I sell it, but what percentage am I comfortable of losing of that? And how long am I going to get it? And do I really need it? And the answer to that question is always, yes, I need it, until I get it. And then I'm like, why did I buy this one? And then I got to try to sell it, and then I lose money. But that's what happens when you have an obsessive personality. You have to have everything that is listed, and then you have instant regret. But it's all, so that's why I said, you gotta set a budget that you're comfortable with and operate within that. And you gotta negotiate with the seller, and you got to go back and forth. So it's almost like buying a car, right? You gotta have that haggling before that, because the seller's trying to get top dollar, and you're also trying not to lose your ass. But the rule of thumb for me is I try not to spend more than I can recoup if I have to. But I also know that the majority of these things are going to be less than what I paid for them, because unless you get a Hall of Fame player, there's not a lot of potential for it to go up. Like, if a guy leaves the team, his market tanks. If he fizzles out, like Bucky Irvin, man. Bucky Irvin's rookie stuff that first year was selling for like $7,000 for a jersey. What if he shits the bed the next 3 years and fizzles out? Like, those dudes lost their ass on those jerseys, right? So that's the problem with a rookie. You just never know. So there's so many variables in it. So finding a budget that you're comfortable with, that you're not going to be taking food off your table is the way to go with these things. And just understand that there's a higher probability of selling it for less than what you bought it for in about 80% of jerseys.
Especially nowadays, because the market keeps opening up, more availability. Bucs Bids is out there, something that used to not be around. That opened the floodgates on a lot of stuff. And there seems to be a lot more backdoor connects and people as there used to be as well. And people, if you list an item and it doesn't sell right away, don't get discouraged. Many times I have something listed for like a year or two, and then it never gets a sniff, and all of a sudden I get a notification that your item is sold. And it's like, all it takes is one person interested in that item to pay what they want for it. So as Zach said, you can't get fixated on pricing. You could overlist the crap out of something and it could be bought in 10 minutes. You could underlist the crap out of something and it might sit for 6 months because no one's just looking for that in particular item at the time. So it's just a hobby. That's the nature of the beast. And if you ever need help, feel free to reach out to us here at the Buccateers. We'll be more than willing to help. Zach helped me get into the jersey hobby. I've helped plenty of people at this point. Now those bastards hate me because they out collected me, they outspent me, they outdid a lot. But what can you do? So I'm here to help. Zach's here to help. We're here to help here on the Buccateers. But John, if you had one grail item to chase, what would it be? And give us your thoughts on the modern day market before we close out, brother.
If I had one item to chase, well, if it was golfing related, it would definitely be a signed autographed flag from the '97 Masters that Tiger won. But I know those are, yeah, you're way into the six figures for that. I think realistic, man, right now I would probably have to say, just because of what he's meant to the team and the community, it would be an Evans, something Evans related, probably a gamer, or something autographed. And really what I'm trying to put together is, obviously I can't you can't really see it, but I'm trying to put together signed jerseys from the entire starting defense of the first Super Bowl.
Love that.
So we've got a good start. We've got Simeon Rice in there. We got Warren Sapp. You obviously see Derek Brooks. We've got Rondé in the corner. So we're off to a good start. But I think the grail right now, and it could just be the emotions, is Evans. That's probably going to go up there. But yeah, things are again, I wouldn't have gotten into this or really, to the extent that I have, if it wasn't for Zach, and Zach giving a lot of very, and for anybody listening who's trying to get into it, very sound advice. And I think that's the big thing. And Zach kind of alluded to that earlier, is just removing the emotion from it. And just like anything else in life, just set a budget, make sure that you stick to that and that you're fiscally responsive in that mindset. But yeah, it's wild what I'm seeing. And some of the pages, and I know I'm not as active, believe me, I'm lurking. I just may not be commenting, liking, but some of it's just, it's outrageous.
It's like a digital museum in a sense, where it's like you see some of this stuff and it's like, holy, it's really cool. But unless everything seems so basic, but the more you get into it, the less and less basic this hobby gets. And that is awesome. One guy I know, I don't know if you could get his jersey easily, but Shelton Corals always signs pretty easily at events and outings and stuff. So I know that'd be a good one to add to the Super Bowl
absolutely.
defensive wall. And he has the most beautiful autograph in the game. Like, he signs it like he spells out in Roman numerals both Super Bowls and all that stuff. Like, he gets very into his signature, so it is beautiful.
Nice and clean. Love that.
Very, very clean. I'll look to see if I could grab something on that while we talk here for our finisher. But Zach, any last words or thoughts on collecting before we close out, brother? It was a great time, great guest today and all that.
Yeah, always a great time. As John mentioned earlier, pen choice is key. A lot of people don't think about the colors that they use, but it can make or break an item. I love to see that a guy has a good signature that takes pride in it. Allstott's the exact same way. Allstott will contort his body around to make sure that he's going to sign an item right. I saw him on the cruise ship have people standing by hold a jersey out taut so he could sign it properly, so that the signature would be nice. Yeah, that's great.
That's good.
And that's on a napkin. That's how crazy I am. I met Shelton at a restaurant, and he was, I'm like, oh, hey.
Some of these new guys coming in the league, I don't know if you guys ever search like the rookie card signatures on eBay. I do it just to see how awful they are. And
Anthony Richardson, did you remember that one?
Yeah, some of them are so disgusting. Like, and if you paid for that, like I would be so pissed that they didn't take a time to. Some of them don't even look like letters. It's just like a shape with a dot or something. It's ridiculous. So, if you get a jersey, John, of Corals, I might have a connect to get it signed. So just let me know.
Heard.
There you go. And like I said, I mean, a little better than a napkin, but there it is. You could tell how beautiful it is. Like, look at, like, on a napkin, ain't easy to sign, and he still went all out. But that was the coolest experience for me. It was 2021, Tom Brady's last time in Indianapolis regular season. We played preseason 2022, but we're sitting in the hotel restaurant. All of a sudden, I get a tap under the table. I see the Super Bowl ring. It's Shelton Coral. Put it on, blah, 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 giving it to me and my pops. I'm like, this is incredible. He's like, yeah, you want to take a picture with it on with me? I'm like, sure. I didn't even go up to Shelton. I offered to buy him a beer or whatever. He's like, no, blah, 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 just here to eat. Thanks so very much. 10 minutes later, comes back with his player's Super Bowl ring. I'm like, I got to get this guy to sign a napkin or something. Then. So that's what I did. But John, what say you? Finishers, closeouts, brother? It was an honor to have you. Where can people keep up with your fun Bucs tweets and golf tweets on Twitter, my friend?
Well, you can always look at the S show. We'll call it that. I'll be, PG-13 at, Pelagic Computer on Twitter or X. Really appreciate you guys having me on today. And talking about the life of collecting. Again, I have a little bit of working knowledge to it, knowing Zach for all these years. I don't know if I'll ever get to that level again. That's not by my choice. It's life, and the one word that rhymes with life. But no, appreciate you guys having me on and talking Bucs football too. On top of that, and looking forward to the upcoming. We're a few weeks out from the draft, so definitely looking forward to that.
And I definitely know what you mean. Just a couple of years ago, I used to, oh, yeah, I'll buy that and worry about it later. Sure, I'll buy this, worry about it later. I was living with my brother and a buddy. Now it's like, all right, got a fiance, got a house coming. Maybe I shouldn't buy that. You know, makes you walk on eggshells a little bit.
Different world you're living in now.
And I will say she encourages it until until sometimes the price comes out. Then it's like, what the? But she's awesome, and I know your missus is awesome. I met her, Zach. Your missus is awesome. We're all blessed with good misses out there as well. So I'm sure a lot of people have great partners that support them, but sometimes you could only be supported so much without getting shown the door. But it was awesome, fellas. Incredible time here on a Man Cave Monday. John's been a good friend of Zach and mine for a while now, so great to get him on. Zach, awesome job getting him on. And next, did you say we have somebody for next Monday as well lined up?
They're going to have to push it to April due to their schedule.
Cool. No worries there. We'll still bring the heat or maybe find somebody as well. So we'll be back on the Buccateers Wednesday, opening night baseball. Not that we'll be talking much about it, but opening night Wednesday, ladies and gentlemen. John, Zach, take care. Awesome stuff, brothers. Until next time here on the Buccateers, Tampa Tones, and the rest of the guys are out. See you guys later. Have a great night.
Have a great night.
Peace. Bro, we'll put it like that. What's it like? I was actually there in attendance in Cleveland for Coe's first career NFL touchdown, which was awesome. And,
Awesome.
It was a great game. You could hear me on camera. I was just screaming, "Say it ain't so, Coe! Say it ain't so!" Sadly, from there, the game kind of went off the rails a little. That was the last high moment of that game, but it was a great game. Overtime loss, fun time.
Yeah.
But how was that moment for you? Seeing the first, whether it was on TV, in person, wherever you were, seeing his first NFL touchdown. How was that?
Well, dude, I mean, we were at home because it was a away game. We don't travel to a lot of the away games because we can get into that later. But, to watch that and to think I wished I was there live. So to have your video was so cool. And just that, hey, this is so cool. I mean, that was so cool for us. Catching it from Tom Brady, right? Like he's got the ball yet. I mean, first NFL touchdown means a lot, right? I mean, as a dad, that's so cool to see. And it's just, it was fun to watch. And, it didn't have the outcome we wanted, but still the same. What a memory! What a memory to have, right? So,
and honestly,
cool.
those. One of the best guests ever, the Buccateers in the house tonight. You guys hear him on Tampa radio all the time. He's one of the best in the business. My favorite personal in the business. That's why I'm elated tonight. Growing up in the Chicago area, you're used to sports radio. That's what gets me through the day. So this man does help get me through the day, I will say, with the Pat and Aaron show at work. Nothing like it. So it's incredible. It looks like we got Stunna bumbling in. I'm Tampa Tones. We are joined by lead goon tonight, host of the Pat and Aaron show of WDAE, Pat Donovan. And it sounds like Stunna is bumbling a little bit. Going to put him on mute for a second until that gets a little clear. But we're joined by Pat
It looks like
Donovan.
Stunna's hanging out with Cheech and Chong in a car with the windows up or something over there.
It does look like he got a little.
No, my camera's broke.
And he was trying to pull me in big time. And then I was like, nothing happened with Indianapolis yet. Like, I really want to give Indy a chance. And then also I talked to Cody Bruton, once he took over Rich McCann and still like, well, look, I was like, y'all just give me the opportunity to explore free agency, see what's going on, and then can I make us do it.
All right, everyone, you are tuned into the Buccateers at wide receiver, Kalen Geiger, and we are about to have a great pod. This is the Buccateers. You're tapped in, and here we go.